Hello everyone and welcome back to Roll Call. Today is actually a pretty important episode because we are making the final species and the final class out of the 2024 Player's Handbook. So that means we have a Halfling Paladin, and as I mentioned last episode, we're going to make this a Dex Paladin, so this is going to be a little interesting. As always, a lot of her stats a lot of her details are randomly decided, so her name is going to be Blossom Stonebridge. And with a name like that, I was originally going to go for a Glory Paladin, but with a name like that, you almost have to make an Ancients Paladin. That is such a flowery name, it's perfect. So we are going to be doing both of the Ancients Paladin, because it is a somewhat, nature and Feywild themed subclass, so it works so well with that name. Alright, now, and also we are level 3, can't forget that. To start off with, we have proficiency in every type of armor, although we are not going to be using heavy armor because we are going to be a Dex Paladin. And then, because we are Paladin, we get proficiency with simple and martial weapons. Now, for the background, I went Entertainer. And the whole reason I went Entertainer is because we want something with charisma and we want something with dexterity. We probably wouldn't necessarily want that unless if we were going with the strength build, but we're going with dexterity. And it's kind of weird because this is going to almost sound like a bard, because she's going to get a bunch of music proficiencies. But I think it works out well because the whole Oath of the Ancient subclass is about kind of like spreading and preserving and taking joy and like mirth and cheer and good company. So it just fits really well. So the first feat that she's going to get is Musician, and this is going to give her proficiency in 3 musical instruments, and I went with flute, lute, and lyre. And then she's also going to get another additional instrument from her background, and so I went with the pan flute on that one. She is also going to get the encouraging song ability from Musician, which means that after a short or a long rest, she can basically sing a song and give heroic inspiration out to a number of companions equal to her proficiency bonus, which at this stage is +2. But that's nothing to scoff at. You're probably going to cap this out. If you go with a typical D&D party, you're looking at about maybe 4 members. And the other thing is you also can't give it to yourself. So around levels 3 to 6, probably depending on your average party, maybe higher if you have like a really large party, like 7 or 8. It's not possible, but it's not also very common. But after that, that's going to kind of cap out because you're going to be, doing this, and you don't need 7 or 8. You just need the ones that are near you. Okay, and then as always, we are just going to go with gold for this one. So between our background and our class, we are looking at 200 gold pieces. So now, as for her actual halfling traits, and these are like actually some pretty good traits to have. Like don't scoff at someone making a halfling because they're going to get some good stuff. So the first thing they're going to get is brave, which means they get advantage on avoiding or ending the frightened condition. The next thing they're going to get is halfling nimbleness, and what that is that normally in D&D, you can not move through the space of a creature that is one size larger or one size smaller than you. However, halflings get to ignore this, so if it's one size larger, you can move through that space. The thing to keep in mind here is that if you're doing this with an enemy, they can do an opportunity attack once you move out of their space. So do be careful about that. So if you're going to do this with the enemy and you're going to go like through them all the way, you want to make sure that you have disengage, or you maybe just want to take the risk and take the opportunity attack. Because if you have a DM that knows what they're doing, they will take that opportunity attack. Next thing they get is luck. This has been nerfed a bit. There used to be a really broken build where you're a halfling, and then you have your luck from halfling, and then you take the lucky feet, and then you take silvery barbs, and all of those used to revolve around the same thing of, if you roll, like, let's see, you have a disadvantage, you roll, none of them are good, then you can roll another dice, and then you can take the better ones. So it was one of those things where between the spell and those the spell, the feat, and the raise, you had players basically being able to cheese the dice a lot. It doesn't work that way here. Here, the way it works is that if you roll a 1 on any d20 test, you can re-roll and take the new roll. Which, if you're rolling a 1, just take the new roll anyway, like regardless of what it is. You might still fail, like if you roll a 2, you might still fail, but it's still better than rolling a 1, and if you roll again and you roll a 1, well, that's just how the dice turn out sometimes. Next thing is naturally stealthy, and what this is that if you are obscured by a medium-sized creature, you can hide. You can take the hide action. Normally you wouldn't be able to, because generally D&D is weird. It's considered that if you can see, if anyone's around you and they don't have like an object obstructing them, you can technically see them. But again, with naturally stealthy, you can kind of get around that by hiding behind a larger creature that's one size larger. So now, next, languages went with common, of course. Honestly, most of the times, common is something people are going to take. If you don't take it, be really careful, because you want to make sure your party can understand you, and it's going to really bog down roleplay if you can't actually speak the language. It's not impossible to do, but just kind of be aware of that. Then I went with Sylvan, because that is a very naturey language, again, fits with Paladin Oath, and of course, Halfling, because they are Halfling, so why wouldn't they speak Halfling? Now for stats, again, this is going to seem weird. You don't have to do it this way, but all I did was take the standard array, and I swapped Strength and Dexterity. So it's going to look a little weird, because the Strength is going to be 10, and they're going to get a plus 0 to that. Dexterity is going to be 15, but then we're going to take the plus 2 from our background to make that plus 17, which means we now have a plus 3 to hit with our dexterity attacks, so any finesse melee weapon, or any ranged weapon for that matter. But between that and our proficiency bonus, for this I would recommend using a rapier for this character, but that's going to be a finesse weapon, and you're going to get a plus 5 to hit, and I'll show you why later when we get to the fighting style. But a plus 5 to hit on a melee weapon attack is nothing to scoff at. Next, Constitution is going to be a 13, that's a plus 1. Not great, but Paladins focus a little less on Constitution. They're more about Charisma and Strength. They do want Constitution in the positive. Friends don't let friends dump Constitution. No matter what class you're playing, never make the Constitution your 8. Just don't do it. Our 8 is going to be Intelligence, and that is going to be a -1. Now, again, the reason I did this is because I just took the standard array and swapped the Strength and Dexterity. For a build like this, I would say you could easily swap Strength and Intelligence, and you would probably be coming out ahead, because then you would have all these skills here that don't have a negative modifier to them, and the only negative modifiers you have are Strength saving throws and Athletics, which don't come up all that often. And having a -1 to it really isn't that bad. If you get proficiency in these, that would offset, that right there, you're getting a +1 instead of a -1. But again, for simplicity's sake, we're just using the standard array. Wisdom is going to be 12, so that is going to be another +1 to that. Charisma is going to be a 14, but we're going to add the +1 from our background to make that 15, which makes that a +2. So again, a healthy amount of stats right there. Oh, and you know what? I almost forgot the skills from the background. The skills from the background are going to be Acrobatics and Performance. Again, perfect because Dexterity and Charisma are going to be our bread and butter. Okay, the Passive Perception is going to be 11. And then we have 3 d10s because we're a Paladin. And we are level 3. Next, HP is going to be, at level 1, is going to be 11 because 10 plus con. And for every level that we're getting at 2 and 3, it's going to be 6 plus 1 for, again, from con. So that's 7, 7 plus 11 is going to bring us to a nice, oh, I put that in the wrong spot, a nice healthy 25. That is where the 3d10 goes. Whoops. Alright. Skill saves for paladins are wisdom and charisma. So that right there, you're not getting the strength saving throw. So again, why not have a -1? Because it's really not going to come up all that often. And in fact, with something like grappling, you can use acrobatics in place of athletics to try and get out of grapple. So again, we're sitting really nice here. We don't have to worry too much about getting grappled because we have a +3 and a +2 to our acrobatics. For skills from Paladin list, I went with Persuasion and Insight. Again, I feel like a lot about this character is going to be about the charisma and like kind of seeing what people need and seeing what they're really thinking and then acting to kind of bring them some joy and like, help keep their spirits up. Now, as for abilities, class features, this is a typical Paladin one called Lay on Hands. Now, here's the way this works. You get a pool of basically Lay on Hands points, and they're equal to 5 times your Paladin level. So at this level, it's going to be 15. And essentially, you can spend one of those Lay on Hands points to heal 1 HP. The other thing you can do is you can spend 5 of those points to remove the poison condition. But you don't get the HP if you use the poison feature. So you can either heal with HP, or you can heal 1 per HP, or you can heal 5 to remove poison. So on the face of it, that's not a great deal. Like 15 HP. Hold on a second. I thought I fixed that. So when you get down to it, 15 HP is basically, like a good chunk. It's a little over half of what we have, and we're in a nice beefy martial. More likely, you are going to be using this on your allies who are a little squishier, and you're basically going to use it to top it off. Because think of it this way: if you do a short rest, and all of these hit dice are like 3d6, 3d8, 3d10. So you're not going to necessarily want to use them if you're only missing like 2 or 3 hit points. Yeah, that's not the end of the world. You kind of want to maximize them a little bit. So like that 3d10, you're probably going to want to be missing like at least more than 5 hit points to really get your money's worth out. You might not get the 5, but at the same time you can always spend more dice. And at the same time, odds are good that you're going to be getting like at least, like in fact, you have pretty much 50% odds of getting something that's over 5 with that 3d10. So you definitely want to like use these economically. But again, if you're missing like 2 or 3 hit points, or your ally's missing 2 or 3 hit points, just boom, Lay on Hands, heal them, done. Alright, next, you get 4 spells by level 3. There are no cantrips for the Paladin. Now, you're going to start seeing a pattern with these spells. So, you're going to get Searing Smite. You're going to get Thunderous Smite. And you're going to get Wrathful Smite. And then, from your class abilities, you will also get Divine Smite. So now, what are these smite spells? Actually, hold on, you get 4 spells. Divine Smite is something you get from your class, you always have prepared. And then we're also going to do Shield of Faith. So what are all these smites? Smite spells are spells, they're mostly used by paladins. The smite used to be something that was just a paladin class ability. In 2024, it got changed to a spell. Some people are salty about that because paladins used to do massive amounts of damage by using their smites, because you could pretty much, do it non-stop, and then you would still have spell slots. So the burst damage for it was very high. this kind of goes into the action economy here because you have to make a melee attack, and kind of like the spells for, I think it was our warlock. Oh no, it was the ranger, because the ranger had spells where when you hit an enemy with like a ranged weapon, you could do the hail of thorns, for example. This is basically the same thing. So Searing Smite does extra fire damage, Thunder Smite does extra thunder damage, Wrathful Smite does necrotic, Divine Smite does radiant. So this is actually good right here. So, and especially like, if you go through these, if you find out, and like honestly, like you're fighting an undead, use that Divine Smite, because that Divine Smite is going to do extra damage. Shield of Faith I chose mostly because we are going to be a Dex Paladin. This means that we're not just going to don our armor and then have a flat AC. This means that when we level up, we want to focus on upping our AC so that we can have upping our dexterity so that we can have a better AC. This is going to help with that a little bit, because what Shield of Faith does is you basically cast it on a creature, and it gets a +2 to its AC, so you can cast that on yourself, get +2 AC. And this is also going to be useful because the way this character is going to work is they're going to have the rapier, and then they're going to have the shield. The shield is also going to give you +2 AC. So that right there, if you shield the faith plus an actual shield, that is +4 to your AC. Even for a character wearing medium armor, that is nothing to scoff at. So that's why we're choosing that one. For your spellcasting abilities, your spellcasting modifier is your charisma. Your spell save DC is going to be 12, and again, it's the same thing every time. It's like for spell attack bonus, you're adding your proficiency with your spellcasting modifier. So in this case, we have a +2 to charisma and a 2 proficiency. So that's going to be 4. The spell save DC is a similar thing. It's just, I believe, 8 plus your... Yeah, it's 8 plus... And then you're basically just adding this to 8, and that's your spell save DC, if that's an easier way to remember it. Next, you get Weapon Mastery. As always, the weapon masteries you choose is going to depend entirely on the kind of weapons that you want to use. As I've said, for this I'm imagining a rapier, because that is going to be the highest damage dealing finesse weapon that you can find out there. At the same time, though, you might want to have other weapons. You might want to consider getting a ranged weapon. Paladins aren't typically ranged, but it is always good to have a ranged option on your melee characters. So she might want to go with a crossbow, which again, ranged weapons always use dex. So you can use that ranged weapon, and then you can, again, add your dexterity and your proficiency to it, and then you have the weapon mastery for it. So I would probably recommend doing that, but again, entirely up to you. Fighting style. We are going to go with dueling. Now, dueling has changed a little bit, and it's all coming down to wording. Dueling used to mean that if you had a melee weapon in one hand and nothing in your other hand, then you got the benefit of dueling. By the wording of dueling in the book, the way I interpret it is that you can have a shield, because it just states that you can't have a weapon in your other hand. And everything, I checked this, when I came across this, I go, okay, I want to make sure I get this right. Everything I've come across online seems to support this, that in 2024, you can have a shield in one hand, and you can use the dueling ability with the shield and a weapon. So, again, this is going to help our AC, and what dueling does is when you have that, you are going to get a +2 to your damage. So now imagine this, you're fighting, and you're doing your dueling, you hit with your rapier, you do the damage, then you decide, okay, I am also going to Divine Smite, so then you do an additional radiant damage, and then you get an additional +2 of your weapon damage type in addition to that. So this is definitely going to be, I kind of imagine this character as a character that's definitely going to be this little smite happy. You can definitely have other spells, and you can use those as utility, but her thing is going to be being on the front lines, being nimble, moving through enemies, hitting with that finesse weapon, and then doing the extra damage with smites. Okay, so as I mentioned, Divine Smite is always prepped. Channel Divinity, that's the next thing you're going to get. Now there's a number of ways you can use this. The first way that all paladins get is going to be Divine Sense, and we're just going to kind of like subhead that here. And what Divine Sense is that you cast it, and if I remember correctly, it's 60 feet, and you can sense any celestials, fiends, or undead within 60 feet. And you know their type, so it's not going to be one of those things where if you cast it and the DM goes, oh yeah, you sense one of those. They have to tell you, you sense a celestial, you sense a fiend, you sense an undead. So you do get to know that knowledge, and that's going to be useful because then, maybe there's a devil disguised as an angel, and you use Divine Sense, and you go, wait a second, you're no angel, you're a fiend. The other thing you can sense is whether or not an area has been desecrated or sanctified, and there's actually a spell that does desecration or sanctification. So that would be useful for that, to know whether or not you gain any benefit or benefit or nerf from that effect. So now, Oath of the Ancients. We get another channel divinity. And this is going to be Nature's Wrath. Not Worth, Wrath. Now, Nature's Wrath is you expend one channel divinity, and each creature you choose that you can see has to make a strength save or be restrained for 1 minute, and it repeats the save at the end of its turns. So basically it's kind of like that ensnaring spell, but it's a channel divinity and you can use it on multiple creatures. But again, like good control one, like like allies in trouble, channel it, ensnare that and or as many enemies as you can, and then allow your ally to disengage, pull back, and then maybe like blast a spell or shoot a weapon or otherwise heal themselves, if they're in trouble. Now, as is also tradition with subclasses, you do have spells always prepared from them. Divine Smite is from Paladins, but from your subclass, you also get Ensnaring Strike, so there it is again. You get that ability to, hit an enemy and, trip them up in binds. So between your Channel Divinity and your Ensnaring Strike, you have some good control options there. And then you also have Speak with Animals, which is not really combat applicable, but you know what? If you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you know that speaking with animals can be really fun. If you have the ability to take Speak with Animals in a D&D game or in Baldur's Gate, do it. For the love of God, do it. It can be fun. And it allows your DM to do weird things like talk like a squirrel. And trust me, we love to make weird voices and talk like things that, don't normally talk. I do remember on one of my first experiences as a DM, we were doing Mines of Phandelver, and they were like the tame wolves that the goblins have. And, the druid in the party, offered some meat to the wolves and spoke with them, and again, it was fun because, I got to act like a wolf and, divulge information, but from the perspective of the wolf. Like, the wolf doesn't always understand, like, goblin things, but he has to describe them in a way that he understands them, and so it's really fun to do. And that is actually it. I feel like this has been kind of sparse compared to other characters, because again, paladins aren't really spellcasters in the traditional sense, but they have spellcasting. I feel like most of the best things this character got were from being a hobbit. That brave, that nimbleness, that luck, and the stealth. The the musical instruments are a nice thing to have, especially you can perform on the street, get some coin. You can do that. But again, like I imagine this character as someone who she goes around, playing music for like honestly like almost like a borderline bard in terms of like her personality. Like she's there to spread joy and mirth, but she's also this just like adventurer who she hears people in trouble. She gets out her sword, gets her shield out, and she goes and she smites problems. So yeah, if you want to play, if that kind of character appeals to you, play Blossom Stonebridge. I'm kind of proud of this. Like again, like once the name was rolled, I'm like, okay, this is an Ancients Paladin. You don't have to do that, and you don't have to make it a Dex Paladin either. You could easily, again, switch these two back. Take, well, probably change the background because again, this if you're going rules as written, you can change the background, and then instead of acrobatics, you can get something with athletics, just so that you can make use of that strength. But again, if you're going to do that, you don't really want a rapier. You're going to want something like a longsword or a greatsword, depending on your fighting style. But yeah, I think this is a fun little Dex Paladin that you can do, and honestly, I'm kind of proud of it. Like this kind of just the randomness of the name and like the ability and the fact that it had to be a halfling due to it being like the last species we haven't gone through by sheer luck was really fun. So yeah, so there we go. So with that, we are done with the 2024 Player's Handbook. We have done one of each class. We have done one of each species. Plus, we've done the half elf and the GIF with those two because we have two extra classes to all of our species. So yeah, I still want to continue the series, but it's definitely going to open up a little bit. Like we're not just going to be limited to the two oddballs from other books and then all from here. Because I definitely want to show you how some of the backwards compatibility works with other races. Because again, like it used to be where a lot of other races were like, oh, you get your +2 and your +1 from your from your species, not from your background. And then there's also the fact that backgrounds are a little weirder now. And honestly, for this, if you wanted to make a strength paladin, you could just say, okay, they're a circus strongman, and then just do the +2 there, and then the +1 in charisma still, and there you go. You have basically the same thing but strength. So yeah, so we're definitely going to start making some weird stuff. I do want to do an artificer next because that is like the black sheep of the D&D class family. But then after that, I want to do something that's going to be really weird. For not next episode, but the episode after that, I am going to try and make the worst D&D character. And what I mean by that is I'm going to choose what is generally considered the worst race and what is generally considered the worst class and subclass overall. And I'm going to see if I can make something that's at least somewhat viable. But yeah, so we'll see what we do then. I don't know what species I want to do for the artificer, but I definitely want to do something. But we'll handle that next time. But as always, thank you for joining me. Please do the YouTube things. Subscribe, like, hit the bell icon, and as always, keep doing what makes you awesome. Thank you very much, and goodbye.